This is part 2 of a discussion on the intro of the song Battery from Metallica off the album Master of Puppets. I'm going to include a link to Metallica's official YouTube page in the description, and you could check out particularly the song starting at like 106 when it enters the fast palm muting part. I'm only going to discuss a bar, and it's amazing how much information sometimes lies within one bar of music. And sometimes when people are studying music, they zoom out too much and they try to take in too much information. Sometimes it's really good to just zoom in on one bar and understand what's happening, be able to really, put it in your recipe book to use for later rather than being really wobbly on a larger amount of material. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to look at this one measure and something I think is really cool that they did. And it's, again, as I mentioned in the previous video, it's hard to know what they were thinking when they did this. And it's not worth arguing because it's more about how do we take what they did and if we really like that sound, how do we put it in our vault to be able to use it later, right? And that's what I'm discussing here. Now, there's a really cool move that happens. It's one bar here, and if we just look at, there's a move that's a half-step move, right? We go from F sharp to G, right? And now if we look later, we're going to go from G to G sharp. So we have two moments where there's a half-step movement. Now we keep going back from E, right? And with E, so we play E, F sharp, G, E, G sharp. We play E, F sharp, G, E, G, G sharp. Okay. Now if we think about this part, if we disregard the E for a second, this is really just a sequence, right? So let's look at this here. And we're going to go, I'm just going to first start off, right? F to G, right? And next bar, I'm going to do G to G sharp. Let me correct that there. There we go. Now look at that. If we look at this really, it's really hard to see it there. If I write it as an A flat, even though I don't harmonically want to do that, we could at least see the shape a little bit better. Okay, right? So we're just sticking an E between it. So it's actually just a sequence that's happening. They applied the same sequence, which is just a half-step movement, right? The whole riff goes up a half step. The sequence is up a half step. They're going to stick an E in the middle here. Right, so E, F sharp, G, E, G. Really what's G sharp, and now I'm calling it A flat so you could see it, okay? Right, this is a cool idea that you can take. So think about playing on the same root note. We can apply this to anything, right? So let's go to the next page here. Let me write in a few more bars here, and let's just say we're going to play an E root note here, and let's pick. I'm going to pick B flat to B natural, right? And then go back to E again. Move this over here. And then I'm going to pick C. Let's do B to C. Right? I've just created, if you notice, I created the same movement. This is a half-step movement. And then this is half-step movement, right? But it's also, the whole part is up a half step, right? So it's sequenced by a half step. This is a really cool move, right? I know I keep probably saying that. It's my phrase today is it's a really cool move. But check it out, right? So they used that's nice, right? Sequence. And then just separated by an E. What I suggested is you could sequence it any way you like. This is just sequenced by a half step, but you can get very creative with this. But just something to think about, thinking about your root note, right? And create a half-step movement between something. Maybe it's G sharp and A, right? I'm going to go back to our root note again. I'm going to go up a half step from where we started the last time and apply the same sequence. There's a lot of things we can do with that creatively if we understand that basic recipe and the idea of sequencing. So the main term we want to remember here is the idea of sequencing. And this is something that we find all over in classical music and everything from the classical period, romantic period, and even in 20th century harmony. And here Metallica is using it. So that would be something really cool to get into your songwriting. I think I just said really cool again. I'll try to stop doing that. If you're digging this video, please like the channel, subscribe, leave comments. And my website is anatomyoftone.com. And always happy to talk about music, so reach out.